Welcome everyone to Eric and Linda Live from Workvine 209, and I'm Eric Hawkins.
And I'm Linda Hawkins. Thank you for joining us today on our live feed. Workvine 209 is a co-working facility out here in Tracy, California. And what we're doing is we're bringing individuals, businesses, leaders, professionals on our live show. And this is what we're doing in our pivot. So the purpose of these videos is so that people that come on our show can offer some encouragement, some tools to get by these trying times that we're experiencing.
Yes, and so today we have a special guest, George Parrish, who is a startup specialist. He works with early stage startups. He is the founder of Entrepreneur Lab. Currently, he's part of the VP of Society3. He's a great advisor and mentor, has a ton of knowledge in the startup industry. And so we want to welcome George Parrish. Welcome, hey, George.
Good morning. Good morning. How is everybody?
Great. Good. How are you doing, George?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I'm doing. I mean, it's one of those mornings where you sit through two webinars at 90 minutes a pop, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you go, "Oh, wait a minute! There's something else that I get to talk for a half hour." So now I get to get even with the two webinars that maybe sit through an hour and a half, or let's put it this way, 3 hours of their time. Now they can listen to me.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So we just want to welcome you, and I know for those who are listening, as we start our show, if you have questions for George, put them in the comments. We'll be able to put them up. Also, if you want to join, this is key. If you want to join the live show and come on and ask George some questions, there's a link right there in the in your chat box. There's a link. You can come on and we'll see you come on, and we'll let you ask some questions from George. So George, tell us, I know you've been doing a lot, and I know that you've worked with startup companies all over the world. Can you share a little bit about your experience and tell the people kind of, your background and how you help startups get going?
Well, it kind of began about 15 to 16 years ago in the Bay Area, and as a result of going to pitch events, asking to judge pitch events, and getting involved as a judge, and then becoming a mentor and advisor to companies that were sprouting up all over the place. And what resulted from a lot of that was starting to see some patterns develop, especially in the digital world. At that point, it was a wide open field. Silicon Valley was really known for a lot of things, but the giants that we now know that exist in today's business world, the Googles, the Salesforces, the companies of that type, were really in their infancy back then. And Yahoo was kind of like the king of the hill back then. Facebook was in its infancy. LinkedIn, obviously, was just beginning. And things like Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, those things were just a dream, that a hope of somebody, or probably not even a German in their ideas at that particular point in time. So what happened was a lot of, as I become more facile and learn more about the startup vertical, it enabled me to help companies that were coming to me and say, "Hey, look, I got an idea of how to pitch my products. Can you give me a hand with my pitch decks and stuff?" And so it kind of began there, and it expanded from from beyond there. And my background before that was in corporate sales. So I spent a lot of time Fortune 500 companies in banking and the medical field, healthcare, and dealing with companies like that. And it wasn't until after going through that route that I kind of expanded my horizons to get into the SMB, the small and medium-sized company sales world, which was very, very different than the corporate world. So taking those experiences and helping companies say, all right, if you're looking at something in terms of revenue generations, these are things that I can help you with. If you're looking at something in the terms of how a pitch deck should be put together, here are some of the ones that I found that were effective. Let's take your deck and push it in that direction, because the things that you're handing me are not, I never used the terms good or bad, but I did use terms like ineffective and effective. And
Yes.
I think that those decks are going to be ineffective when you're looking to gather a round of funding from either an accredited angel investor or a venture capitalist. So it all began there. And then once I started to build some momentum, it didn't take long for people started coming out of the woodworks and saying, "Hey, can you give me a hand? I heard that you helped this person and this company. Can you give me a hand with mine?" And at the same time, I was going to pitch events once, twice, three times a week. Things just grew exponentially from there. But it all began in the Bay Area, and now I mentor companies all over Northern California, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Europe, Great Britain. So it doesn't take much. As long as you have a PC, a digital stream, or a platform like we're talking over right now, you can help anybody in the world with their business problems.
I have a
So,
question for you, George.
yeah.
How many pitch events have you facilitated?
Well, I've hosted and been a part host of the Society3 pitch event for the last 12 years. So myself and a few other people have been involved with that. We're all friends with Axel and Marita Schultz, who are the founders of Society3, which began as uh, a pitch event and accelerator in Berlin.
Wow.
Since that company has since moved to Lucerne, Switzerland, and that's where it's based right now, alongside their NGO, worldinnovationsforum.org. So I've known Axel and Marita for a number of years now. We've been hosting their pitch event in San Francisco for at least 12. I've probably sat through, and this is no joke, I've probably sat through 5,000 to 6,000 pitches in that time. So you can kind of
Wow.
do the numbers at one or two pitch events a week for a number of years. And then basically my wife put her foot down and said that, she was tired of me not being home. So I cut
Yeah.
back I cut back going to everybody's event under the sun and just concentrated on our event, which is once a month, usually on the third Thursday of every month. And we have had a little break in the action since February with the COVID problem, kind of basically shutting down a lot of co-working spaces. So we've kind of gotten this thing moving forward. I'm starting to sit in on a lot of virtual pitch events, and they're
Right.
just different. They're just different. The live events are very, very different than the virtual events. So some are effective at the virtual level. Some are more effective at the live level. It just depends on the event. It just depends on the startup.
Wow.
Yeah, so I could relate to that wife. Sometimes I have to call Eric and tell him, it's time to come home and be a husband. So I could relate. We have some questions from our chat, and Barney has a couple. He's asking, how do you think this pandemic will affect the startup world?
Well, in terms of funding, it's not affecting it at all. If you go to crunchbase.com and you start looking at who's receiving rounds of funding, that hasn't stopped. And that hasn't stopped all over the world. There are companies that are receiving um, seed rounds, pre-seed rounds, grants, Series A, Series B, C, and D every
Wow.
day, every day. So it's not as if things are coming to a complete halt, the complete grinding halt. One of the things that I have seen is, the startup world's no different than the corporate world. Um,
Hmm.
Companies are embracing innovation right now within the managerial levels. That's usually where it usually begins in companies, and then those various departments start coming up with ideas that they could pitch to their own C-level executives in terms of maybe finding out an innovative way of doing business somewhere down the road. That's one scenario. There are other companies that are sitting there and saying, no, as soon as this ends, everything's going to get back to normal. We're going to be fine. We'll just keep doing what we're doing to become successful. And then there's a third area also that's existing right now where there's a fire going on at these companies, and because of the inaction of the people involved in the decision making process, they're just going to let their companies burn. And it happens every day, not only in the corporate world but also in the startup world. So I remember somebody came up to me and they said, well, is this a good time to start a startup? I think it's a great time to start a company right now. And one of the reasons why is because you haven't been pounded to death with this over the last 6 months, and your view on your company is going to be fresh, and your ability to get out there and get out ahead of the competition is going to be a pretty exciting place to be when you know these things really start to gain traction and the economy gets back and starts moving in the direction that it eventually will. We started looking at the history of pandemics in this country, and look, in that Spanish flu in 1917, 1918 took place during World War One. Our participation in World War One, and then we went through the Great Depression. We went through another World War. We went through the Korean War. We got to a point where in the 60s we put a man on the moon. I
Yeah.
mean, life doesn't end. It won't end after what we're going through right now. But things will eventually get back to a point where we all start to recognize that. And in the meantime, those companies that are innovating and those companies that are looking for a better, quicker, faster way to not only sell but to scale are going to be the companies that are going to probably succeed in the long run. And that goes for your Hewlett Packards, your Googles, your Ciscos, I mean, Salesforces, uh, Zoom, Twitter, what have you. I mean, if they're just sitting there thinking that, because they're cash rich, that they're going to be able to, basically turn a light bulb on and they're going to be back to, life as we once knew it, they're going to get it. They're going to all going to be in for a real surprise. And I'm not saying that any of them are thinking that way. I'm just saying that anybody who's sitting right now and not doing anything is probably the worst thing they could possibly be doing. And that includes startups. Okay.
Great. So this is a great opportunity for you to start your startup, start getting it going, start writing it down, start making connections. We got an advisor right here and mentor, George Parrish, that can help you. I see some chats from Barney Kramer, another great mentor and advisor that can support you. And in that, talking about startups, I like to shift gears a little bit because we were part of an organization or company that you started called Entrepreneur Lab, and it had a ton of great, valuable information that even helped us to get to this point at Workvine. So, can you share a little bit about how you started Entrepreneur Lab, and talk about maybe some of the things that people that you bring in and things like that?
Yeah, this is about 3 or 4 years ago. No, about 4 years ago, and I got a call from a young woman who asked me to, if am I the crazy guy that was driving back and forth from Stockton to San Francisco and working with startups in pitch events? And I said, yeah, you got him. And she says, well, we have some startups here in downtown Stockton that we want to do a pitch event and we want to put up a cash prize, but nobody knows how to put together a pitch deck. Would you be interested in coming down and helping us out? And I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So about a week later, I went down and I met 12 companies that were working in a co-working space, Stockton's first co-working space called Huddle. And um, I looked at everybody and they said, all right, there's going to be a $5,000 prize. It's going to be in 8 weeks. I'm going to show you how to put together a pitch deck. I'm going to get you ready for that pitch event. I'm going to get you to a point where you're going to be able to walk into any room at any time and talk to anybody about your company also. So after our first meeting, 8 of the companies dropped out for the second day of training for the pitch event. But I took those 4 companies. We had our pitch event. Eventually, a company won. And that company that won the pitch event actually got purchased by a parent company back in Indianapolis, and off to the races they went to. They left Stockton, they left actually Discovery Bay, and moved back to Indianapolis to become a division of the parent company that bought him. So
Wow.
I went down to the folks that were in charge of Huddle, and I said, well, how much did you make off that transaction? And they said, we made. What are you talking about? And I said, you just gave somebody free rent for a year uh, at your co-working space, and then they were bought. So what kind of business arrangement did you have with them so that if that did take place, you would get a piece of that? And they said, well, we don't even know what you're talking about, and we got nothing out of this. So I said, well, that's the last time that's going to happen. And I said, I can put this thing together so that it does eventually start to help local companies get to a point where they can do the exact same things that I talked about just recently here,
Yeah.
and get them to a point, hopefully, where um, they can learn everything that they're going to be able to know, and basically incorporating issues around how to incorporate a company, uh, leadership, learn about leadership, co-founder conflicts, entrepreneurship, investors, pitching, business development, growth hacking, marketing, branding, customers, client acquisition, traction, customer management, how to put together financial plans, funding, bring in an accredited angel investor to talk to the startups. And then as what came into after the first cohort of startups came in here, we brought in somebody to actually teach them how to leverage LinkedIn and how to put that together and how to
Wow.
leverage LinkedIn for your business and everything. So basically, it's a 12-week program going over 12 different topics, taking everybody from soup to nuts to get them to a point where they should be able to, once they leave the program, start their own business and survive, for one, but understand all the business issues that they're going to have to know in order to be able to succeed. Now, we've gone through, we've signed up, and by the way, you guys are one of our shining stars. We love having you go through the program, and we're really proud of your success so far. And I think the world of both of you. And one of these things that we just have to do here is keep pushing, just keep pushing forward, make progress every day. That's the message that we send. But I'm also at one of the things where we've pounded in from day one, and I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me say it, but revenue is a good thing for companies. Revenue is a real good thing for companies, and we don't encourage people to give it away for free. We just don't.
Yeah.
And especially when you get into times like these, it's good to have a little bit of a reserve, or a little bit of being able to find a financial lifeline somewhere out there in the business community. It may not be a accredited investor, it may not be a venture capitalist, but it may be a bank, it may be a credit union, it may be a hard money lending person to be able to get you over the hump, to be able to keep you in business and everything. But those kinds of things, every startup has to know. Every single startup has to know, and that's what we always encourage. And I'm sure you'll be able to think, or you'll be able to verify this for me. We started talking about putting together a team from day one.
Yeah.
So we don't talk about solo entrepreneurship. We just don't, and I don't encourage it either, because Eric, as you found out the hard way, this thing called digital marketing takes up a lot of your business day, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
you once you start spending
Yes,
4
it
or 5
does.
hours on
Yeah.
your social media sites, you don't really have a whole hell of a lot of other time to devote to other aspects of your business. So,
Absolutely.
I don't think any one person can do it all anymore. I really don't. And I think the Entrepreneur Lab, uh, we drive that home in a pretty solid and pretty positive way, to let people know that you do need your team.
Yeah.
Eric needs Linda. Linda needs Eric. And
Yeah.
anybody else that walks through the door, including Barney Kramer and myself, is probably welcomed with open arms.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We got a question from Keisha Fox, and she's asking, what's the key thing most entrepreneurs miss when starting a business?
Principally, the whole idea and the development of co-owners team to start from very get-go, whether it's 2 or 3 people. People that think they could start this and do this on their own. I'm telling you right now, in the startup world,
Yeah.
that's going to be a tall order. Only 3% of all startups get any funding from accredited angel investors or venture capitalists. And probably 1/4 of 1% of those 3% are solo entrepreneurs that see a dime. So, the likelihood of you getting funding as a solo entrepreneur, and you're going to need funding because as you scale and scale quickly, you're gonna need money. You're gonna need
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
All those companies, the Salesforces, the Googles of the world, they needed millions of dollars to get to where they were at. They didn't do it with free tools that they found on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
Facebook. They just didn't do it. I mean, it's a very, very complicated set of rules that need to be followed, and it costs money to do it.
Yeah.
So, uh, and I just, so part of the thing that, I'd have to say team is number one. Then we start looking at things like, all right, in the marketplace, who's your competition right now? And why do you want to do this? If somebody comes up to me and they say, oh, we want to build an app. All right, well, what kind of app,
Yeah.
and what's the app going to do, and what makes it any different than the 13 million other apps that are
Yeah.
already in the Apple
Right.
Store and the Google Store? Come on.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
so well, I just thought it was a cool idea, and I said, well, okay, fine. Next.
Yeah.
Please, next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, I see that, we're getting some questions here, and I just wanted to just let everybody know that's watching that link that I just dropped in. If you want to come in on the show live right now and ask George some questions, click on that link or paste it into your browser. I'll see you come in. We can bring you in for a quick chat with George live on our show. So this is the link right there. If you want to come in live on the show. All right, click that and we'll get you in and ask some questions with George. All right, so talking about going back and talking a little bit about pitches, and I know we participated in coming out and watching. Can you give our listeners or viewers some of the top things that you would suggest for when they're going to look for funding? What do they need to have in place to present to an angel investor or a funder?
Well, they're probably gonna have to pitch the money guy or the money gal sooner or later, and that means that pitch deck has to be it doesn't have to be good. It has to be exceptional. And there are certain things that all investors look for, and part of the beginner's problem when they start looking at how to construct a pitch deck is they go into too much detail about the business problem that they're solving. I basically know most business problems that most people are trying to solve. What I need to see are those those problems being backed up by a lot of numbers. And I'll tell you something, all investors are driven by numbers. And if you have a pitch deck that's weak in that one particular area, you will probably never ever get a chance to have another cup of coffee with that particular investor. I
Wow.
mean, all the things that people put together in terms of uh, investor decks and pitch decks that, you know, I've seen more and more investors take these things in their offices and they just start flipping through these investor decks to get to the numbers because that's what they're interested in. That's what
Yeah.
they understand. That's basically what's going to determine whether this particular meeting after that particular day is going to go further or not go further. So know that numbers are critical to money people, and also know the mentality of the people. I've the number of my friends that are angel investors. They basically tell the entrepreneur right up front, we're not your friends. We're here to take you out. If we're going to put money into this company and you make a mistake, it will be the last mistake you ever make, because we're going to get in there and put our own person in there, somebody that we know can do the job.
Wow, that's some good information. I mean, and so and I know being part of Entrepreneur Lab really helped us to fine tune our pitch. I mean, we hadn't had an opportunity to pitch to any angel investors at this point, but I know that you scrubbed them and you helped us. And for those who are listening, who are looking to start business or create a startup, Lab is something that you may want to take a look at. I put the website link in the chat so you can go to the lab. And then, we're thinking, well, we are going to bring Entrepreneur Lab here, right, to Tracy, right?
That's right. That's
So
right.
we
Yeah,
want to create
we're really
startups.
looking forward to seeing where the startups are going to be coming from in the area, and the kinds of ideas that they're going to be bringing forward. And we're anxious to work with those entrepreneurs and to be able to help them to get them up and running. And not only you guys, but there have been other people from the Tracy area that have gone through the program. And just to let everybody else know, I mean, we've been very, very fortunate. We started in Stockton, and people drove to Stockton from Santa Rosa, from Western Marin, from uh, Burlingame, from
Yeah,
Campbell, from Half Moon Bay, to come to Stockton once a week in
yeah,
order to be able to go through the program. Plus, I mean, we also had, a lot of local folks also that came through the program. But, it's been it's been really interesting where everybody's coming from and everything. And it isn't as if there's, you know, a paucity of accelerators or incubators in the Bay Area. That's a real
yeah.
feather in our cap when they're coming out to the Central Valley and driving 2 or 3 hours each way to go through the program. So, I'm happy. We've probably had 28 companies go through the 4 cohorts that we've had so far. And out of those 28, I'd say 22 completed the course. And out of those 22, there's still 16 companies running around. So look, the average um, rate of companies that succeed in the startup world is 10%. So you
Yeah.
get 90% failures, and we're well above that number. Well above that number.
Wow, that's really good. I'm excited to be a part of the upcoming Entrepreneur Lab here in the San Joaquin Valley. Stay tuned for a lot of things that are happening in the valley. We want to bring that culture of entrepreneurs and startups and bring the advisors and mentors to the valley. Everyone always thinks that you got to go to San Francisco, you got to go to San Jose, Silicon Valley to create a startup or to get help and get mentors. But we have the resources here, not only just at Workvine 209, but we have the resources throughout the whole county.
Yes.
And so, I advise you guys that are listening to reach out to George, take a look at the website. We also have one of our mentors on the chat, Barney Kramer. He's going to be part of the Tracy Entrepreneur Lab as well. So yeah, we're excited about what's happening and what's going to be coming up.
George, before we close out our live, is there anything you want to tell your listeners, something, a takeaway that they can hold on to?
Yeah, I do. And I think this is really important in today's world. Um, Anybody that's running a business and anybody that's thinking about starting a business has to understand one very, very important rule of survival in this world today. As soon as you get on social media and start um, pro-conservative, pro-progressive statements that live forever on social media. What that basically does in today's society is takes half of your available revenue, and you just walked out into the back and threw it in a trash can. So when you're starting a business, progressives' money as well as conservatives' money is important for your revenue when you're starting a company. You need everybody in the pool. And by going out and starting this stuff on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever the hell social media platform you're on, starting that stuff is going to do nothing but impede your progress as a company. You have a responsibility as your company grows, not only to your employees, but to your employees' families. And when you make business decisions and open up your mouth, there are consequences for doing that. So my suggestion to you is be very, very careful about what you put out into the world. Very careful, because it can come back to haunt you, and it can come back to kick you in a place you don't want to be kicked. Okay. And that's really important, especially during this time and this period in all of our lives.
Wow, that's
That
really
is
good. So,
That's
you know,
good advice.
startups, entrepreneurs that are out there, be very cautious and careful about what you're putting out there, because it's never coming back, right? And you don't want to get caught up in a situation where you got this great idea and then all of a sudden, bam, they find something that you put out tons of years ago that hinders your growth.
Yeah. And then, one of these other things too is I'd like to come back one of these days and I'll talk to you about some things that I've observed over the years, and things what you can do at pitch events, things what you should never do at pitch events, how to deal with politicians at the city and county and state and federal levels to either help you or impede you in your I mean, there's a lot we can talk about that goes beyond this initial conversation, and I'd like to get into it and then see if we're going to pour gasoline on that fire or not.
Great.
Either that or if something's going wrong in your life, just blame Barney Kramer. Blame Barney for everything.
Hey, I know Barney's going to try to come on now. Huh?
Yeah, there he is. Yeah. He's going to have to put down his sandwich. It's probably his lunchtime right now. So.
Well, great. Well, thank you, George. I really want to thank you for coming out and participating and sharing and giving insight on startups and how you can help. You guys, George's contact information is right there. If you want to reach out to him, you have some questions. Looks like Nicole said hi. Tobias Cooks out there.
Yes. Hey, David.
Yeah. So we just want to give shouts out and thank you guys for participating and listening. Stay tuned for Thursday. Thursday, we have the CEO, the founder of the Polyglot Developer, Nick Raboy, who is an advocate for developing, and we're going to have him on our show live on this Thursday at 2 p.m. So stay tuned for what's coming up. I want to thank you again, George, for being a part and an intricate part of Workvine and just the community in San Joaquin Valley. So thank you for being a part.
Thank you, George.
Okay. All right. You guys take care, and I'll see you soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.